So this video is kind of a weird hybrid because I was initially going to be doing what I'm going to be doing for the basically the next month on this channel, which is I'm doing previews for every NBA team. I'm going in order from the power rankings that I put together of the worst teams in the league to the best teams in the league. And the Portland Trail Blazers, after trading Damian Lillard, were the team that I was expecting to be the worst team in the NBA this year. But then came a report that they are not going to be moving him and will bring him into training camp. Now, this is something that isn't necessarily the biggest shock in the world, given how long the actual process of him being traded has been delayed. But with that said, it kind of makes it impossible to evaluate exactly what Portland will be this coming year, because maybe Damian Lillard does end up playing, and that would obviously prevent them from being the worst team in the league. I still think they would be quite bad, especially because he's probably fairly detached from the interest of actually playing there. And as we've seen with like James Harden, for example, Jimmy Butler, for example, a player playing on a team after he has asked for a trade, it just doesn't really work all that well. But it would make them better, so I kind of have to acknowledge that out of the gate. I'm also probably not going to touch the Miami Heat until this trade goes through, because that's another team that it's like, how exactly am I supposed to evaluate them? Because the way that I'm looking at it, like, if the Heat don't have Dame next year, then I obviously think much worse of them than if they do. With that said, this is technically going to be the first episode. I'm going to talk about what Portland can expect going into next year. Bear in mind that these rankings are kind of all over the place because of the Damian Lillard trade situation. Hello everybody, welcome to Oscar Rusty Bucket. Subscribe to the channel if you have not already and drop a like on this video. It only takes 1 second and makes a massive difference in how the video performs in the YouTube algorithm. So with that said, I'm pretty much going to operate with the notion that Damian Lillard will be traded, and I'm going to talk about this team without him. But just bear in mind that might not actually be what it is towards the start of the season. I would bet quite a bit that he would be gone after like 30 games or so at the absolute maximum. But let's talk about the young guys on this roster. I'm expecting Portland without Damian Lillard to be quite bad. This could have, a little bit of variance based on what they actually get out of a Damian Lillard trade, but it looks like it would primarily be draft capital and like Tyler Hero maybe going to another place for something, or maybe they just end up taking on Tyler Hero. One way or the other, I expect Portland to be pretty bad. That said, this is the right time for them to be bad. They will have just traded Damian Lillard. They're moving on to a new era with this franchise. It really only makes sense that they would be bad in the wake of that. Now, unfortunately for them, it seems that they're bad in the year where the draft class this year isn't that amazing, at least from the things that I have heard. As I say, anytime I talk about prospect stuff, take it with a little bit of a grain of salt, because I just can't watch basketball that's not the NBA. My brain is broken, other than a little bit of stuff here or there. But Scoot Henderson, obviously the headliner here. I'm also very interested in Shaedon Sharpe as well as Anthony Simons and what they're going to bring to the table. Anthony, first of all, is going to be the best player on this team. I know Scoot is the guy that people want to talk about, people want to focus on, but in terms of who should be taking the most shots, in terms of who should be leading the offense the most, it is Anthony Simons, and that's exactly what's going to happen. I would all but guarantee that he is the leader in points on this team. Scoot obviously would probably be the third option. I guess they will probably give more shots to Jeremy Grant. Maybe they would try to move him, although with his contract that might not be the easiest thing in the world. But one way or the other, Scoot Henderson's definitely going to be probably the engine of the offense, probably doing a lot more playmaking than he is scoring, at least for his first year. I'm a little curious how much his jump shot is going to be a problem for him in the summer league when he did actually play. His jumper looked solid, not excellent, but definitely not like a huge problem area. But of course, that's the summer league and we really can't be sure. But what we can expect from him, I would guess probably 16 points and 6.5 assists, maybe even up to 7. Decent efficiency, but not jumping off the stat sheet efficiency for sure. Anthony Simons, I expect he's one of my picks. I think I've put him in my top 3, at least top 5 for most improved player. It's kind of hard to win most improved player if you're complete dog shit. The team is complete dog shit. If you're complete dog shit, you're definitely not winning most improved player if that's you. But he's probably going to average at least like 25 points per game. I wouldn't be shocked if, just given the lack of options out there, the lack of like having to default to Damian Lillard, that he could average like 28 points per game. This is kind of the way that it is anytime you're talking about high volume scoring on a bad team. I'm not expecting it to be all that efficient, but someone's got to shoot the ball, and the answer is probably going to be Anthony quite a bit. Now, my favorite player on this team by quite a substantial margin is Shaedon Sharpe. Shaedon Sharpe is my favorite player on this team because he reminds me a lot of J.R. Smith, this super athletic, like 6'5-ish guard who has an excellent jump shot, a pretty jump shot, will take it on high volume, super athletic, as I think I already mentioned. And I think if he can put that together with like solid enough handle, solid enough rim pressure, and solid enough playmaking, the guy could genuinely be very, very good. Now, this upcoming year, I'm not all that sure what to expect of him in terms of his actual stats. He could just have a repeat of what his rookie year was, or because of an increased role, he could average like 15. I really am not sure. And the last major piece here is Jerami Grant. As I mentioned, they could potentially be interested in shopping him just because he doesn't really fit the timeline of a rebuilding team. He's pretty good right now, and it really doesn't make a lot of sense for him to be here, but there's an argument to be made for just having the stability of having a pretty damn good player on your team, especially having an option that Scoot can look towards to make his life easier as a playmaker. If you put a bunch of guys who suck around a playmaker, their playmaking is going to be less effective. That might sound kind of obvious, but it is true. Outside of that, for everybody else on this roster, don't super love really any of the other young guys on here. I've seen a decent amount of what they can bring to the table, and it's just not particularly impressive to me. If there are other rookies outside of Scoot, which I think there might be, I don't know anything about them, but in the case of I think his name's Walker, I just didn't see good stuff from those guys when they played, and I saw them in person. I didn't see good stuff, and I watched a couple of games, and it just didn't seem like they brought much to the table. That said, they're young, and this is an entirely new context, and things can go entirely different, so I'm not writing anybody off, but I don't have high expectations. Yusuf Nurkic maybe going to be the starting team center. I mean, there really aren't that many options better, but I could definitely see him being somebody who shopped around this year, although he might be similar to Jerami, kind of difficult to move and would just as a result having his contract expire because nobody wants him. But yeah, I'm expecting them to be bad. I'm expecting Scoot to have a really fun highlight year. I'm expecting Anthony Simons to get a lot more credit than he did before now that he is in a more forward-facing role, not playing small forward. And, I would like to see development from Shaedon Sharpe for sure, and I think they'll probably win 27 games. I don't know, rough ballpark there. Maybe up to 30, but I'm expecting them to be pretty bad. There's plenty of reason to be excited for the future. Whatever draft capital you get out of Damian Lillard plus your own, you're probably going to get a very high pick in this draft. There are a lot of really good forwards in this draft. There's also a couple of decent centers to replace Nurkic, so that's an idea. And I like this upcoming draft class in terms of guys who will kind of fit anywhere. So that is the case. It's just that the ceiling doesn't seem to be insanely high for anyone here. There's not a Zion of this draft. There's not a Wemby of this draft. It's much more the case of I don't know, the 2013 draft where there ended up being a lot of good players, but where those good players ended up getting drafted was really wonky because it was just kind of hard to tell where everybody should go because there was just so much mid around. But yeah, don't expect them to be good. I expect them to be kind of fun at least. Scoot is going to be a very fun player. I look forward to seeing him play for sure. Unfortunately, I only got to get a very small glimpse of him in the summer league because he got injured, so that was really disappointing. But yeah, he should be very good. He'll have the typical rookie guard struggles for sure. As I mentioned, I don't expect his efficiency to be great, but fun and showing lots of upside for the future. I like the direction Portland is going, but part of that direction involves just being really terrible right now. So that's what's probably going to happen. But again, have to see what happens with the Damian Lillard situation. But that is it. Shout out to Rudy for editing this video, and goodbye.